Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is going to be an interesting video. Like I went through a whole thing. It's been a kind of a tumultuous but a very rewarding New Year to start the new year. I had a kind of a I don't want to call it crisis, but an issue resolves itself quickly, and I received a lot of spiritual benefit. And I talk about that in this a couple of different voiceovers. I get to Joe Biden's giving out the Medal of Freedom. Like that's a whole interesting thing. The people, Hillary Clinton, Soros, RFK Senior, Magic Johnson, some of these other people, right? Very interesting kind of thing. Joe Biden just gone, and I talk about the kind of movement of rap and youth, and I talk about this rapper Ren in a little bit, at some point. A bunch of things. And at the end of the video, I get into a couple of comments, like almost conflicting comments about me and the channel. And, let me just start here because I just received this one comment. So a person writes, and I want to do this at the beginning of the video. Could we have a time and day when we all try to meditate like Saturday or Sunday? Not physically, of course, just a thought. So we already do that. The Gratefulness Meditation that I have created, this Gratefulness Meditation channel, is the old Sajmarg method of meditation that I've done for years. And it has all the services, various sittings, this transmission and cleaning given in these sittings. I'm going to redo them because I've kind of had like a spiritual breakthrough. I've been using the sittings myself and, the meditative sittings. And then every Sunday in the morning, people can meditate using this method. But, the method is a very specific method. This is not just meditation. It's not something you can do transcendental meditation or your own form of meditation. Meditation is a state of mind. It's a state of consciousness. And it is like concentration is something, and like sleep is something, and like, the beta waves and the alpha, these different states. Your brain goes into different states of consciousness, right? Hypnosis. There's all these things. And meditation is one of those things. It's a natural state. Everybody meditates. So in terms of the meditation that I do, the Gratefulness Meditation, the channel, which is linked in all my videos, has all these playlists and all these explanations and a channel explanation for how you do the method. If you're interested in receiving the transmission and the cleaning aspect of it and see if it works for you. It's not ideal because face-to-face interaction with preceptors, the way I started years ago, was in many ways better, but it's more accessible now, and you can do it in the comfort of your own home. But in terms of the group that we have here, which is 100 or so people maybe, here I'll pull up the channel here. I'm looking at the channel. And so every Tuesday I do an individual sitting that people can receive. The last one had 174 views and 13 comments. So I don't know how many of those people did the meditation, but it's around 100 or so, in the hundreds, give or take. I don't know. Every once in a while I sort of ask people who are doing the sitting to like the video. And then people meditate on Sunday at your convenience. And I do a transmission and cleaning group meditation sitting. And Saturday night, usually like Sunday morning, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then it's received whenever you decide to meditate. There's no time and space in this specific meditation. But if you're interested, you go to the Gratefulness Meditation channel, and all the various explanations of how to do the system are there for people to participate, and you can do it at the convenience of your own, your own home. And then, I talk a lot about the philosophy, of course, in the Journey series, which is mostly for members now. I don't know when I'll make that stuff public. But I talk about a lot of the things here as well in the normal videos. And I do it today in these various videos. And so to jump off to this thing, the introduction to this thing, I answered these two comments. Today is Monday, January 6th. I started this video yesterday on Sunday. And I was developing a headache, even though I had this sort of breakthrough. And then we got a ton of snow, like for here, 6 inches, 8 inches, I don't know, 5 inches. I mean, there's a lot of snow out there. It's still snowing now. And so that's always a good sign in terms of the system of meditation I do, in terms of it's considered like rain and snow and things like this are considered like grace falling from the sky in a physical form to go with like spiritual grace and these things. So I get into some comments here, one kind of a positive comment and one not a positive comment. But I wanted to say this at the beginning of the video because there are people who are constantly dropping negative comments who, like, I think they have, people I might have banned before, and they create a new channel so they can tell me I suck, right? Like, it's a thing, and it's, beyond me and here, and like, I don't care, it just doesn't matter. And I get into a whole bunch of stuff with that. But if you're a person who's perpetually doing that, either to me or somebody else, trolling people, you have this need to tell people they suck, like to tell people they're horrible people. And it could be, you justify it any way you can. You want to drop your negativity on somebody else. And that's how I perceive these comments. That's why I ban people, because I can feel the energy behind it. And it has nothing to do with me, which I say, and I talk about this in the, when you address the comments at the end. It's never anything to do with me. It's all to do with you. Like, I'm just the object of shit that you have to deal with inside yourself. Because I'm saying things whatever way that I'm being that's pissing you off. And it's not just me, it's anybody on the internet that you get mad at, you hate, you feel, negatively towards. It's about what you have inside of you. And you want to project that shit on somebody else and dump it on somebody else. You're bullshit. Like you're whatever is negative or hateful or whatever inside of you. I mean, that's what that is. This behavior that I end up calling out a lot in the different comments, it's because of that reason. You're fundamentally dishonest with yourself about what's going on with yourself. Now, you can have an opinion about my opinions or me as a person, which we all do. We have opinions about other people. And it could be positive or negative. And you could talk to other people and make videos about it or do whatever, post things on social media. Oh, I dislike podcasts in the future, whatever it is. And that is a complete different thing that I'm talking about. Like when I mocked Don Levin and I don't, his followers is what people have, all these things. It's completely different than wanting to tell somebody that. Wanting to tell somebody they're a piece of shit, right? Like wanting, with anger and venom in your system. Like you're triggered in some way and you want to tell those people they suck, right? And I'm not interested in it. Like I've said this over and over again, and I get into this longer explanation of it, which I'm not going to say here. But I know this is a plague on the internet. Like people are dishonest with themselves and figuring out why they're, when you have an emotional reaction, like my things are, when I talk about things, it's about, the system collapsing and how fucked up humanity is. But I don't care about it. Like I don't have an outcome in mind. Like I did in the beginning. You guys who've been around here for a while, I had an agenda, my own what agenda was, and whatever limited agenda that I have. But it wasn't manipulative. Like I was upfront about it. I don't have some hidden agenda. And now I have no agenda at all, right? Like when I first started to do this as my job, I was going through a divorce. And at some point my ex was like slamming me and blaming me for everything. And I knew it wasn't my fault, but I wanted validation for it, right? Like, I wanted to win the divorce. Like it was not an overwhelming thing, but also all these people who are turning on me, people in the who do the Migraine Meditation, who are, like just the general attitude towards me, and they were thinking about me in a way that I wasn't. I had been, whatever, demonized and, whatever canceling that would have been going on there. I mean, there's no canceling in that sense, but I was put into a certain category that, in terms of who I am now, wasn't appropriate, right? And, there was some things there, wanting to prove myself, some of the other, whatever was going on when I had the channel initially. Like there were some kind of things where I was receiving some validation from my success, whatever success there was that I was having on my YouTube channel. But now that doesn't mean anything, right? Like I do this because it's just what I'm supposed to do. And in terms of an outcome, the system collapsing is what's best for everybody. But it isn't desirable, especially, as you get older. So it's a thing that we don't want, but we know is good for us. Like if you study the system enough and you see the direction, people aren't getting better. The system isn't helping us evolve. We're de-evolving. in every possible way. The system is bad and it's making people worse. And the evidence is something I present here all the time. And you can't fix the system. Like the system is, I mean, it's not fixable from the standpoint of its very foundational existence is in illusion based in a debt-based economy. And then all the other systems, the subsystems, the religious system, the economic system, the energy system, the orientation, the cities, the materialism, just all of it, the way that we're oriented in our system is wrong. It's the opposite of divine. It is demonic. So there's no fixing demonic, right? There's just no fixing demonic. You can't divinize something that's demonic. A demon could find God, right? A demon is your ego, and an ego run amok, that's gone to the dark side. But the devil or a demon or, a person, an entity, a single entity could admit they're wrong and turn back to God. It happens all the time. A wayward soul can come back to God, but not a whole system. Like, the system has to be destroyed, and then one based in divinity has to be built in its place, right? But in terms of where I am as a person in all of this stuff, like I cover the mainstream media, then the things that are specific to me and events in my life and, whatever feedback I get, whatever is happening is coming from God, right? Like I take everything as coming from God. So, I read a Whispers message, these channel messages where the second master of the systems, Babaji, says, we're all just pawns. And I understand, to some extent, some of the meaning of that, beyond what people would say, what does that mean? You're just pawns in terms of the divine structure. That if you need something to happen in your life, whatever it might be, some kind of good thing or bad thing, or it's supposed to happen, it's part of your script, it's part of your story, it's going to happen. And there'll be people to fulfill the role, whether they seem like enemies to you or they seem like friends or they seem like, whatever it is. They, if there's something that you have to endure, somebody will show up and do God's work. And they might be thinking that they're making their own choices and decisions, but, you're not even control your own thoughts. Like there's, all etheric beings have access to your mind and your heart. Like you're connected to, in the beings that don't have physical bodies, but even on a physical level, there's the ability for extrasensory perception and communication through the mind and through the fact that when you're around certain people, you'll notice that you'll either be worse or better or the same depending on the people. But you'll have people that pull you up, and when you're around them, you're a better version of yourself. And then you have people who pull you down. There's this movie called The Natural with Robert Redford, and there is I think the two actresses are Glenn Close and Kim Basinger. And Kim Basinger is like this murderous, like she-devil, and she takes the guy down. And then his childhood love, his girlfriend, Glenn Close, pulls him back up, right, if you see this movie. But you'll see this where there are people who pull the best out of you and people that pull the worst out of you because we influence each other. And what you connect to in terms of music and, the people you connect to, victim consciousness or, divinity or whatever it is, affects you as a person. And so, our thoughts and our decisions are often influenced by forces beyond our control. And oftentimes we do things without even knowing why we do them. That's the sense of being pawns in a scripted game that's, that some kind of divine drama that has already been, established, and things are going to happen whether we like them or not, beyond our ability to control them. But our way about going about those things and accepting them and being grateful for them is where we get our evolution from. It's how we interpret our life and how we experience it. And the more we resist things, the harder they are to overcome, right? And I've experienced this over and over again. And so there's part of the truth community that wants to punish, George Soros gets a Medal of Freedom, or Hillary Clinton, or they want to see people punished for the narrative that you perceive about these people and the system itself, right? You want individuals to pay, Joe Biden, some people would be Trump, other people in the world, Israel, or whatever it is, Palestine for some people, right? Whatever you think is the evil doer, the bad guys. You've been convinced that some people are the bad guys, the deep state, the problems, and you want to see them brought to justice. You want to see, because of your limited perception of what's going on here, far away from the divine, the divine elements of the system. And you want the truth to come out, right? You want the truth, like you think the truth has to come out, like your truth, whatever you think the truth is, and the truth the way you see it, and that other people have to gravitate it, your sheeple relatives and the people around you, and all these things. Like you have the truth and they're not accepting it, and there's all these things, right? And I'm like so far beyond that. Like I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. I cared about it at one time, and less ever since. Like when I started doing these videos, I started, so-called waking up. There was the beginning of it, and then now there's just, I share what I have to offer, my perspective, and, people will, like it or dislike it or embrace it or benefit or, whatever it is, right? But the sad fact of the matter is that the majority of people don't want to change. Like, they don't think that change is part of their existence. They think they're complete, they don't maybe view themselves as being perfect, but they don't think there's anything they have to personal change. Like they don't have to grow and evolve as a person, right? And that means you're dead. Like your life is over. You're just now you're doing damage in terms of your next incarnation or wherever you're going next. You're just going backwards because you're creating all these impressions and having all these experiences that are there to help you change and grow and evolve, and you're not willing to change and grow and evolve. If you wake up and your orientation is that you got to tell someone else that they suck, you want them to hear it. You want them to feel you, like feel your butthurtness and your whatever. Well, you're going in the wrong direction, right? You're putting extraordinary effort. Like, I'm giving the example of here where people open multiple accounts to tell me I suck, and, I don't even know who they are. Like, I'm like, is this the same person? Is this, I'm barely aware of the person. Like, as an essence, I don't know what they look like. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're even being honest, if they're just trolling, whatever it is. And I don't read the comments, and I don't think about it. Like, I move on almost immediately, right? Unless I do a comment video, then I, make fun of the person, do whatever. And then I move on, right? I forget about the next day. But, I know that the energy behind is they want me to feel like they feel. They want me to feel bad, like it's some kind of thing. They want, it's not enough that they suck, but they want to, they feel bad inside. They want me to feel the same way. And this internet is saturated by that, right? Because none of these people are taking any personal responsibility for having to change and that they're part of the problem. And that's why humanity is kind of fucked right now. And whatever happens to humanity, the only success is when people realize that they're responsible to change and grow. And you have to be honest with yourself, right? Not manipulating reality to stay the way that you are, which is what most people are doing, right? Most people are manipulating the world around them, distorting the world around them, and willfully denying the feedback they're getting about what they need to do to change and grow as a person, right? And so an example of this is, I've grown more and more faith in the divine system. I mean, the older I've gotten, and there's a point where I passed it long ago, where I just surrendered to the fact that everything's accounted for, that everyone gets what they deserve, that the system there's a plan and there's divinity and there's, it's a divine system and it's perfect in its application and nobody escapes the consequences for their actions. And so in that, knowing that, then the way that we all behave, the thoughts we have, the actions we take, the attitudes we have, there are repercussions for them. So being disciplined and not lying to oneself, and even in moments of weakness, not indulging in negative thoughts and, whatever they might be. So when I start having thoughts that I know are manipulative thoughts or, thoughts of wanting to, it's basically saying to God, fuck you, God, I know more than you. I don't like what you're doing here. I think I need to take control of it, right? I think I have to, intervene and make up for your mistakes because you're clearly getting it wrong. Like everybody who's a victim, everybody who has a bone to pick with what's going on in the world, thinking that somehow it's God's fault, thinking that something's out of order. Well, then you've lost faith in God, right? That what's happening here is a mess of our own creation, and they're divine forces that are working towards divinizing a system that, because of our freedom of choices, and our freedom of choices have more to do with our attitude towards things. that happen, like our willfully distorting the events that unfold in front of us, right? Willfully pretending that there's something happening that they're not accepting the truth of the matter. And your problem with other people not doing that is a part of that. Like, when you see other people distorting reality and people in power who are willfully distorting the truth, which is what I cover here. It's the distortion of the truth. It's people's individual distortions of the truth. And if you're above that, then you have to be extraordinarily disciplined in your own thought process. Like sometimes I just get angry for no reason. Like, just is a thing that happens. Like there's so much less anger and there's, I don't feel like there's any hatred left in me. Things that have been cleaned out because of the spiritual practice I do. But sometimes I have these feelings, right? Whatever they might be. And I wake up, or I'm like, sometimes, a lot of times it happens at night, it might be related to something I eat. And I can get mad at some of the people in my life. Dodgy, who wrecked the Sagemark system and turned it into the Heartfulness cult. Like I could easily hate him and get mad at him. And so when I start feeling that and, thinking about it, right? You start thinking about, wishing bad things happen to people and, these things where you get in these moments of like, really anger towards people. You realize how bad they suck or whatever. And, I work towards stopping that. Like having some sense of, pulling myself out of that state. Because it's not about Dodgy or anybody else. It's about me and, my feeling that God isn't doing his job. I mean, that's what this all comes down to. All the complaints that people have. Every time you have a complaint about things, whether, they appear to be unfair, you're saying that there is no plan, there is no order to things, and I'm getting screwed over. And it's easy to feel that way at times because sometimes everything feels that. Like it's just when, bad things happen to good people and things happen to you that that are unjustified. But if you trace back past lives or, what you're benefiting from in the situation, there's a reason that you're going through it. And the sooner you accept it and are grateful for it, the easier it is. And, all these other deviant like thoughts you might have are just keeping you away from accepting the nature of your reality, right? Which means that you're going to experience the thing that you're disliking more and more until you figure out the right way to go about it. This is what the idea of, past lives is, but it's also in this life. Like you see the same fucking things happening over and over to people and to yourself and just making the same mistakes over and over again. So at some point you realize, oh, like I'm caught in a loop and what do I got to do to get out of this loop? That movie, The Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray. How do I get out of this loop? And if you're not working on that, then you're going to be in these loops the rest of your life and for eternity. I mean, until you crack the code. And so, that's why I say I don't care about any of this stuff because, none of it has anything to do with me and none of it I can change. None of it any of us can change. The things that are happening now and unfolding in our society are going to happen. So how do we deal with them? Like, how do you deal with them to navigate them successfully? It always comes down to being grateful. And so that's why, when people show up and they want to and blame me from their miserable existence, I want no part of it, right? And even people who come up and, want to thank me and say that I've changed their lives in some way, it's all the divinity that flows through somebody, right? It's, if you're changing, it's you. Like you've made the choice to embrace change and become a better person and accept the circumstances of your existence and that you have everything to do with, what's happening to you right now, what's going to happen to you in the future. And so when you're doing the right thing, it's going to lead to, better outcomes in the future. When you're on your spiritual path, when you've connected to your soul and you figured out why you're here and what you're doing here and what where the direction you're going, and you start working towards, in conjunction with your, in symbiosis with the divinity within you, your soul, and the divine plan for you. When you start cooperating, everything changes, right? Everything changes for you because you're not fighting against, your ego isn't fighting against what your soul wants for you. And the majority of people are running away from their soul's path and they're fighting, their egos are, sometimes they're just, they're playing a role. They're a higher developed soul that's supposed to be a villain or whatever. They're supposed to play out a role. That's, whatever. But everybody else is rejecting the divine plan for themselves, what their soul wants for them. And so that's why the world is the way it is. And until that changes, it's going to stay this way. And so whatever happens, the collapse of the system, whatever the things that are happening to produce a different outcome, because we can't keep on going in the same direction. I think that's obvious. So anyways, just a little introduction here. Let's get into the other stuff. I think I just want to say 2025 is going to be completely different in terms of the content I produce here. I've shifted and the world shifted. And so I'm going to, change up what I'm doing because, it's just time for, everything's changed. Even though it's just, one day. One day it's 2024, next it's 2025. There's been a shift, and, there's been lots of changes in the last so many years. And there's just all these things, right? But anyways, let's get into the other stuff. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I got two voiceovers to do, one for this video and one for my Journeys series video 173. That's weird, I said 33. I'm always groggy in the morning. So they all blend together too. So I've had like kind of a big spiritual, movement in my past week, starting with a difficult situation that came completely out of the blue. And I want to do two voiceovers. This morning is Sunday, January 5th, to kind of describe that process a little bit. Some of the spiritual stuff I'll cover in my Journey Series 1. And then just a brief introduction. I got some things to get to here, but it's about to snow like a lot. Like, this will be one of the biggest snowfalls we've had in this area. We get more freezing rain or snow that doesn't stick, but I think they're saying 8 to 10 inches. Let me just check that. It's going to begin today and then go into tomorrow. Yeah, I just look at the forecast. They're saying snow for sure, which, I don't know what that is, but it's going to be snowing in the afternoon and then all the way through the night and into the morning, so whatever that is. I would say probably it'll be 4 to 5 inches, which will be good. And I'm just saying that in the Sajmark system of meditation, there is a connection between times you feel the transmission as like divine grace and rain, or in I guess this case snow, some sort of like weather event, which is interesting. So there's a lot of rain in India at these gatherings, these spiritual gatherings, which I experienced when I was there. And so let's get into the thing I want to talk about here. So there's been a couple of instances recently where my wife and I gave advice to, I won't say advice, but our position when something was very clear in terms of the COVID boop and the, getting the COVID thing and psychological medications, right? One is for a member of her family and another member of my family, where we were, we're in a time, I've talked about this before, that we're in a time where you're betting on your beliefs and your ability to navigate the world of lies, right? Most people understand that there's lots of lies and deception within the system. And you have to make choices now. When COVID rolled around, you were given a choice on how to deal with it. And some people, I don't know what the percentage of, I think it was close to 70% of the people got vaccinated, right? And then the rest of us were in the minority. And, when you have emotional issues and things like this, which many people had because of the, related to the COVID lockdown and just the times and all these things, that you have different avenues. And my way of dealing with it is the spiritual system, which is the Sajmark system, in terms of like, how to make sense of your issues. Everyone goes through times of emotional crises and things like this, right? You have your ups and your downs, and people are not functioning very well psychologically. And when you go through difficulties and all the rest of these things. How do you deal with those things, right? Some people just self-medicate. Some people don't do anything. Some people whatever. But people have to figure out how to cope. Some people go into counseling. And, I have a master's degree in counseling. And I worked with various, treatment center level. I worked with people. I worked with outpatients. I have experience with diagnosis, psychological diagnosis, and of course, reading people as a preceptor on a spiritual level. Reading, they're two different things, but they can work together to understand what a person is. Like understand, beyond what a person even thinks of themselves, what makes them function spiritually. And I've always had a good sense of that just naturally. Like it's one of my qualities. I'm introverted. I'm interested in what makes people tick. I was always interested in these various kind of not just psychological and spiritual models, but other ways of thinking about why people do what they do, right? And, how do you cope with that? And I know psychological medications are a fucking nightmare because I saw how they affected people. When I worked in treatment centers with kids, they would turn them into zombies, right? I was just telling my wife this story. I worked when I was in college. My buddy, who I just told my wife another story about him, which was weird, but he was, his dad owned a building company, he was like a construction worker. He ended up dropping out of college and just taking over his dad's business. And the last time I saw him and his brother were driving down a highway where I had gotten a flat tire. And I could see they were in their trucks and they had all their building stuff. And my ex-girlfriend, who was an ex-girlfriend of my former roommate, who I always got along with, was driving behind them because she lived right. So it was I was on a highway where probably I would almost know people. And this is in Connecticut. And it's like a 5-lane highway, a 4-lane highway, like a busy road that eventually goes down to the beach. The beast goes down to the beach. And there's a restaurant called Harbor Park that was on the river. It was kind of a seafood restaurant. It did really well in the summer. And it was like you would be driving down to the beach and it was almost close to the shore. And a lot of people would bring their boats and there's a place to eat out in the dock, kind of a big bar. And then this like seafood restaurant, like one of these kind of ocean view restaurants, even though it was on the Connecticut River, right where the Connecticut River was starting to expand to go down to the ocean. And this woman who became my girlfriend was, a nurse who was quitting her job and moving to the Virgin Islands. And I wanted, I wanted to get out of Connecticut. And I had this idea that I would move to Hawaii because I was waiting tables, and if you're going to wait tables, you might as well do it in a tropical paradise. It's people want to live where everyone goes to vacation, and one of the best jobs to have there is waiting tables because people spend money. They go out to eat, and it's just this thing. So we end up hooking up there, going to the Virgin Islands. But it was an odd thing where my friends who just happened to be going by me and saw me. And then this woman, and they both passed within a minute of each other. Like it just had to be. Like here I am with a, broken down car on the side of the road. It wasn't, I don't think it was a flat tire. I'm not sure what it was. The car broke down, and I'm on the side of the road going, what am I going to do? Cars are flying by me, and then these friends of mine start to stop, right? So, it's an odd thing. And they were in the far left lane, like they were flying, going to some job down by the, they did a lot of work. They had a place in the ocean. Their family did, right? They owned land in a kind of a, a place you could walk to the beach from. I don't know if it was necessarily oceanfront, but it was like an area where people, it was a nice area. The dad was a successful builder. And they were trying to pull over to help me. And then this girlfriend who was probably going over to the right lane because she was going to take the next exit, she came over and picked me up. And I waved my friends off. And they were like, moving over their way up the road. They saw that I was getting help. And it was like kind of this amazing thing. Like, it was within moments of me breaking down. Like, when she dropped me off at work and I dealt with the car or whatever. But we had a conversation which led me to go to the Virgin Islands with her because that was what was happening She had a plan. All her friends were going to, a lot of friends were going to do it. She had friends, a guy who had bartended there before, but he quit. Like he didn't, all these people backed out the last minute, which was kind of funny. But like there was four of us that ended up going, and me and this girl got together, and then we came back, and she got into counseling, and the counselor that she chose eventually was the person that I would hear about Saj Mark from. So it ended up being the pathway to me to do my meditation, and like just this event was not accidental. But anyways, this guy, when we were in college together, he was working at some hospital, and he had some friends there, and they were all like people, like we're all getting hired from like like people who knew each other, and it was like cleaning big giant pots and working in the kitchen of the cafeteria of this hospital, like some big hospital, and I ended up getting a job there, and there was a job where it was called Special 7, where you had to like take these two dumpsters, like these dumpsters on wheels, these plastic dumpsters on wheels. They were, somewhat big, and you had to take them down to a big dumpster and dump them. And there was like 7 jobs, and they called it Special 7, but none of the jobs were good, right? And there was a guy who was like had mental problems or something, who I didn't know at the time was on heavy doses of medication. And, I'm always interested in people who are like mentally impaired, crazy people, like really crazy people. I'm always having conversations with them because, it's just how I am. I've always been that way. Like, people with mental issues and people with Down syndrome. Like, I've always been interested in people who are, somewhat see the world differently. Like, especially people who are really like crazy or whatever. So my tendency was always to be, like observant of people who like had issues. It's more of a, for me, like kind of, oh, wow, these people are different because I'm different. Like I have dyslexia and whatever. Like I'm interested in people who see the world different, but I'm also, can be rude and be an asshole and, make fun of people. That's just how I am too, so combination of those things. So the guy says, he takes the boss, whoever was the manager, says, you need to do this job and the Special 7 job. And me and this guy who's, I later found out was on medication, right? And so, heavy doses of psychological medication. And the boss says, one of you two guys has to do Special 7. And I go, well, he can't even spell Special 7 because, classic Romano. Like I said to my wife, classic Romano. He can't even spell Special 7, so I have to do it, right? And so, and I don't know if I had ever kind of made fun of the guy, but the guy was just dead, like brain dead. Like he'd walk slow. He had what I would later call, that ex-girlfriend who was a nurse. She worked in psychological psych hospitals, and they called it the thorine shuffle when someone's on these medications and they walked weird. And so, I worked there for a period of time. It was during whatever year the Chicago Bears won the Super Bowl. Because I remember being at work when that Super Bowl was going on, and people saying, "Yeah, it's a blowout." Which so many of those Super Bowls, between the NFC dominated the AFC, but the famous Chicago Bears team that had those big, whatever it was, and great defense and all that stuff. But so time went by, and that guy got off his medication, and I was told by my friend about this guy, but no one told me who it was, right? And I didn't know I was working with him. And so this guy I don't know if he was using drugs or something, but he had a mental breakdown, and he went into a church with a pair of numchucks, and he wrapped the numchucks. Numchucks are those things you see with Bruce Lee fighting in those movies where there's 2 pieces of wood with a chain in between them, right? And Bruce Lee could do all these fancy, like, sort of baton-like things with them. And he wrapped the nunchucks around the priest's neck and started to choke him and said, "Show me God." And he was arrested and committed to some psych institution. And then he was put into this job, right? And they took him off of his meds, and he was like crazy. And then I realized it was this guy, and, I had made fun of him a little bit. And he was like some kind of potential serial killer. And I was like, why did you guys tell me? This guy was crazy, right? Like, just, was Hannibal Lecter, like on meds, right? One of my coworkers said that he was just so crazy when he got off the meds that he was with the guy in the elevator, and the guy said, do you see that girl over there? I wish I could F her until I kill her. Like that was his, like he was saying it like, yeah, like, like crazy man. And he was scaring everybody at work because, you know, I mean, his medication, he had no pulse. He was just walking around like a zombie. But when they lay off of his medication, he was like freaking violently crazy. And then, of course, I worked in these treatment centers with kids, and I saw how these kids would be put on these meds, and I mean, they were just not, like, in a way, conscious anymore. And the meds had all kinds of side effects, and physical side effects, and emotional side effects, and we could control their behavior because you were basically tranquilizing them. There was stuff they would take to go to sleep because they had nightmares. They couldn't go to sleep, and they were always crazy at night because if they were in an abusive situation, their family, which they almost always were, the abuse usually happened at night, so their nights were horrible. And there was this stuff, I think it was called trazodone, a couple of these things, trazodone, and there was another traza something, that you would watch this thing. It was like an elephant tranquilizer. There's one kid who came in, and he used to try to get into restraints with the staff to get, the kids would say, to get their energy out. Like they were so restless and had so much energy. And this kid was getting to a restraint, and he was like, talking to me, going, I'm just waiting for my meds to kick in. And then when his med kicked in, he just was out. Like he just couldn't even walk to his room. Like it would hit. It was like an elephant. I mean, he was on trazodone, this stuff, and whatever it was. And so, I knew these meds were bad news, right? Because of my experience with them. And I knew that they were like bad news, would be bad news for my family members, my biological family, my, whatever, my brothers and sisters and my mom, very sensitive. I mean, I had to go on OxyContin for an operation I had, hemorrhoid like surgery and frickin' when I got back from India. And it was a month of, like, I could only go on for like a week, and I had all these weird side effects, and I felt horrible. I was disconnected spiritually, and I was like, I'd rather just have the pain. Like, I ended up having to go on Valium because it was really painful, the post-surgery stuff. I mean, the pain was excruciating. But, like, I just went on Valium, and, and then just got off that as soon as I could, and just, and once I could tolerate the levels of pain that were there. But I was like, this is, it's just horrible. And, the more you develop spiritually, the more sensitive you are. And like I've always said about allopathic medicine, it's like a hammer. In some cases, it's like a nuclear bomb. It's always forceful. It's always unnatural. I mean, most allopathic, the medical model, especially the pharmaceutical stuff, it always comes with, powerful side effects and issues, right? And my ex's brother, like they came from a fucked up family. And my ex's brother, they were really smart, but they had some issues. And he contacted my ex, like this is, according to her, I wasn't a part of the conversation. And she said that he was on Cymbalta and that she should go on it because he was just in heaven. Like he was like, there's whatever's wrong with our family kind of stuff, or whatever's wrong with our particular, brain makeup or whatever it is. Cymbalta was filling in the gaps. It was like, it was just, he was able to function on a level, and he was feeling great about it. And he was telling her she should go on it. Like, it's just like he knew it was it was probably something good for the whole family. And then like 3 months later, it stopped working, and it was actually causing him great suffering. Like now he's having all these, like not great things. And he was having to go through withdrawal to get off of it, and it was miserable. So I knew that, like, that was, I mean, these SSRIs and some of these, I don't know if that's that, but all these different, drugs that are given, and all, there's 200 different, like, side effects of there's 200 drugs that the side effects are either depression or suicidal ideation or both. I had this, this long list I've shown you from one of the some Vox or one of those news organizations. But these drugs, they have a lot of bad side effects, and a lot of the drugs that people take for antidepressants can cause you to be suicidal and make things worse. And I don't recommend things to people, but I don't believe in allopathic medicine. If it works for you, I don't know. I can't tell people what to do. But I know, for me, what my path is, right? And, there was a cancer thing. So one of my, wife's significant people in her life has gotten turbo cancer after getting many roosters. And then, someone in my life, our life also, has went on psychological medications and turned on the family and has, had multiple issues, which I figured out it was medication that it was confirmed for me. And these things where you are betting on your ability to interpret what's going on around you, making decisions based in that, navigating the tumultuous time of all these decisions that have to be made, where our nation, our world is collapsing in various ways, imploding on itself. People are doing really poorly. And, I've had to bet on my spiritual meditation system and using the heart as an instrument for how to interpret, events, connecting the divinity within me. And then also, of course, the truther stuff, right? And the various truther narratives. And it's very clear. It's easy for us to make decisions because of the way that we feel about it as truthers. But sometimes people, when they're faced with a crisis, they start doubting themselves and they run back to the institutions. They run back to the people who are supposed to be in authority and the authoritative system because they don't want to venture out of that system and they just want to trust the beast, especially in America where we have a very wealthy, successful system. And, even though we believe certain things, then when the sort of the rubber meets the road, we decide, hey, I don't have faith in my ability to make decisions. I'm going to run back to the so-called experts. So there's all those things, which has happened. I've seen a number of times where people are on the cusp or on the doubt, they're on the fence. They're not sure. They're leaning more to the truther thing. And then they run and go get the boost, the bloop and all those things, right? Which happen with a lot of people. It's pressure being put on them by the family members and these things. And so they cave. They don't really have faith in their trutherisms or the trutherness or whatever. But I have long had these ways of making decisions. And, that's what I did with COVID. I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital. Even if I'm going to die, I'm going to die in my bed. Death is there for all of us, and this is it for me. And it was not really that bad, but it could have been. It just, I was having to, it was bad enough to where I had to think about, what happens if I can't breathe at all? What happens if I have, what if I get worse? I had to, I had, the first COVID, I was really having trouble breathing at times. And what happens if it gets worse, right? What am I going to do? I'm not going to go. There's times I would go to the hospital, and there's times that the allopathic medicine has worked for me, and I've had good doctors and, whatever. There's times I would still go for certain things. If I broke my leg or something, I mean, there'd be how, I'm not going to, set it myself, right? You have to go, it's, I would trust the allopathic medical system for that, right? So, it's not like it's all going to be whatever, but, based in these things, it's anything to do with pharmaceutical drugs, I'm not going on them. It just, they don't work. And, I took, I forget what it was a migraine medication. And I for the life of me, I can't, maybe I'll remember it later. But if I do, I'll just say the name randomly in some other part of this video. And it worked amazingly. And it made a serotonin, but not the real serotonin. It was artificial serotonin. And migraines have connection to a lack of serotonin. And the kind of migraines that I would get was started in the gut where the serotonin's made and things. My migraines have gone. They're much different now. They're a lot less debilitating because my serotonin levels have gone up through my spiritual practice, which is interesting. But I took this stuff. IMatrix, that's what it was called. And it worked like amazingly. And one time I felt so good, the serotonin or fake serotonin. I was like, oh my God, I wonder if I would feel like this all the time. Which now I do feel like that, like all the time. Because my serotonin levels were low then, in my 30s, and now they're much higher because of the spiritual cleaning I've gone through and things. So it's kind of worked out on a more organic, holistic way. But then I took it, and it would just be like a diuretic on steroids, where I would have to urinate, and I would go. Let's say I was doing something, I'd go walk back to what I was doing, and then I have to go urinate again. It was just like I can't even describe it. It was making me nauseous, and I still got the migraine anyway, and it made me feel weird. And so I was like, I'm not gonna take this ever again, right? It was just, I'll have the migraine. Like, it was better just to have the migraine than feel weird and be affected, and then also have and have the migraine with other, making it worse, right? And what I realized then, and I've seen this with other people, like this stuff I was talking about, where the meds work for a little bit, where this prescription drugs work, and they work in the beginning, especially these psychological drugs, but they're not good for you. They're not stuff your body wants in you. They're often synthetically made. They often are an unnatural chemical base. They're not food. They're not, herbs. They're not natural. And so, and even something like that, if your body has never had it before, I mean, you can eat a food. You go to some foreign country, and you're eating foods, and you're taking, herbal remedies or something that your body's never had before, and your body has to figure out how to deal with it, right? And if you're taking something that's not natural and synthetic and really powerful, and oftentimes these things are, like the stuff that it's preventing some part of your body from functioning, like these is it called beta blockers, things like ibuprofen and aspirin or things like this that are preventing the pain impulses from reaching your brain. Like, you're still in pain, it's just stopping, it's cutting off the pain. That's, you don't feel it, but your body's still in pain. You just don't feel it. Like taking those, it's like alcohol. It's making some of your brain not function. Like, it's a toxin. Like, it's things that stop parts of your body from working properly. And so you're relieved from the pain because the pain impulses aren't going through your nervous system and getting to your brain to let you know you're in pain or whatever. Well, you're still in pain. You just don't feel it, right? And so, it's a fucked up thing. It's inhibiting you from your body from functioning. And so, in your body is like, fuck that. I'm gonna stop that from happening. Like, so, a lot of these different drugs stop working because your body, recognizes this as like a poison, as a toxin, and then does something with it, and it causes side effects, and it stops working because your body's trying to deal with this thing it doesn't want inside of it, right? And a lot of allopathic medicine is that stuff that shouldn't be in your body, and you're injecting it in there. So, like, this is, I mean, in some cases, like, you're in so much pain, you just, you can't even function. It's like, debilitating, pain management. And so, like, they've had to deal with all these things that are, like, just bad, like morphine and opium, and these things are bad for you. In some situations, like, you need something because the pain's that bad, right? But whatever it is, right? There's just, there's all these things. But in terms of, it's great to be right. It's great to feel like, wow, I'm doing a better job at making decisions, especially when we've gotten so much, shit from the beastly system, and then sometimes significant other people in our lives, right? Like, if you were having an argument with people, and there's a disagreement with what you think is the proper path to take, loved ones, family members, or whatever. It's great to be right, but it's not that great when they end up suffering, right? And they end up, like, turning on you on top of it. Like, they don't acknowledge that you're right, and they don't learn their lesson, and they just keep on making the same decisions and choosing their, the wrong path that they've chosen. It's always sucky when you have loved ones and family members, and this has become something that's quite painful for people because it's happened on this large scale level. There's people who are like, well, you know, Biden sucked, and so Trumpers feel like they're right, and Trump will suck, and Democrats will feel like they're right. Like there's times where both choices are wrong, but then there are times where there's clearly a right choice, and based in your worldview, based in the way that you see the world as a truther, and if you're a real truther, not these fake right wing ones and whatever, or a spiritual person or both, and you're getting guidance, and you have a good system to make the proper decision. It's painful to watch the people that I mean, it's not so bad for watching like Don Lemon suffer, or you know, like I just saw that Aubrey Plaza's husband died. He's 47, like out of the blue. I don't know if he was sick beforehand. The actress Audrey Plaza was like almost like the biggest witch in Hollywood or whatever she is. Like she's just a dark, like whatever. She did that little thing for the one of these obscure award shows. She did that ritual. They sacrificed one of the kids from one of the young boys from that Stranger Things show. Remember, there's that video I showed you and at various times in my channel, and it's got Sharon Stone's there, and all these Hollywood skanky witches are there sacrificing this kid. It's just the kind of stuff that like Hollywood perpetuates. But her husband died, and like might have to do with the bloop or whatever. I don't know. Like it's just we know it died suddenly, these things. But it's not great because it's like why didn't they listen? It's just this thing, right? Why didn't they listen? And so like there's that part's painful when it's personal to you. When you see these people suffering for their bad decisions and they're being arrogant till they die, they won't like ever realize that the path that they were on, the way that they, it's their decision-making apparatus and their way to interpret what's going on in the world, especially the people who are hostile to the people who are getting it right, which is so many people, which we've experienced here in the truth community. And so, that's affected me in my personal life. All right, I'm going to talk more about this for the Journey series, but let's get into the other stuff here. I want to talk about Joe Biden's award ceremony, which was bizarre. And, these awards that he gave and the people he was giving this award to. And then got some more stuff that I want to present here. Okay, so I got a whole big thing to get to. I've already shot the video clips, but I wanted to do this. I had a headache yesterday, and it's just kind of gotten better. So I wanted to be in a more upbeat mood to deal with it. Today is Monday, January 6th. Big important day today or tomorrow or today. I don't know if years ago it was today, but 6th. I don't know if it's the day that they make everything final for Trump. So one of my viewers had recommended a song. They saw that I had a Chris Webby clip for one of these year ends. Someone had told me about Chris Webby. My son had recommended Chris Webby. But he did a great song for, whatever that guy. Remember there was that country song, from Richmond, whatever it was. And he did a good like rap version using the sort of chorus as a hook for a bunch of rappers did this. And it was very truther. This guy, Chris Webby, is one of the better truther rappers. There's a number of truther rappers. And I got a few of his songs on my phone, Chris Webby. I kind of like rap. I mean, I went to a Run DMC concert when I was young in college, so that's when was the beginning of rap, right? And the Beastie Boys were like young. They were there. They were part of it. No one even knew who they were. And I've kind of been a rap fan, based on playing basketball over the years. And there's an evolution of rap where it was just kind of goofy, like the original hip-hop rap. It seems silly now. Like just... the stuff like that. And then there was some like talking about being impoverished and growing up in the inner city, ghetto stuff. But then there was gangster rap, which was mostly fraudulent because most of the rappers weren't gangster members. Many of them were actors, and they were trained artists. that ended up pretending to be gangsters, and that was promoted to degrade the African American community into being criminals. I'm part Sicilian. My Romano, my grandfather came over from Sicily, and Sicily is renowned for having criminal organizations and the mafia. And my grandfather was a barber. My dad was a guidance counselor, right? Like people would look at me and my brother, and we have sort of a presence and think that we're part of some whatever it is. And I'm like, no, my dad's a guidance counselor, And so there was like a kind of a badge of honor, and they've glorified Sicilians and Italians in the mafia, right? But majority of Italian people, they are whatever they are. It's a diverse group. But there are certain cultures that they have pushed out to be gang members, gangsters. And the idea of a gangster is being this positive thing, but then, it's a criminal, like you're embracing criminality. And that's what the gangster rap did. They glorified, it made people aspire, especially in the African American community in the inner city, but also into the suburbs, to be gangsters, right? It promoted this idea of being a criminal and criminal behavior to aspire to. And then instead of promoting education and spirituality and these things as a way to something to look up to, right? And so it was something pushed out. It's a genocidal act, right? To push something like this, like an agenda to get people to. I mean, you see this now with the serial killers, where villains are now heroes, like Maleficent and Dexter. Like serial killers are now, Hannibal Lecter. Like people look up to serial killers and they're protagonists in movies, and where criminals have often been protagonists in crimes. Like it's a big heist, and you're rooting for the criminals to rip people off and steal money and people's pensions and shit, right? And where criminal behavior is considered rewarding sociopathic behavior, and so that's all a part of it. And then there's been kind of a new genre of rap where they talk a lot about psychological issues, like this new generation of young, Generation Z that are so self-involved with psychological issues. And this guy, Ren, I'm going to talk about him in a moment, is like a part of that, which I'm not a big fan of, but at least it's honest, because these kids are all fucked up, right? NF, who I like, is a rapper, but he does a lot of that shit, which is too much. Like he has an album, I think, called Therapy. And so you have that movement, but then you also have people who are truthers. And this guy, Ren, like Chris Webby, is that as well. And so I listened to the song. It's called Baggage. It's about like alcoholism and drug addiction, right? And, I was not in the mood for it, but I left it up on my toolbar. And then I just went through something, and I listened to it again, and I kind of liked it. And I was interested in this guy's, he does he does a verse, this guy, Ren. And I'm like, is this guy Scottish or English? So I think he's English. But I'm interested in rap in different countries, because now it's something that's worldwide. I was watching this documentary on this guy, Boo Boo Honey Singh, I think his name is, something like that. And he's a Indian rapper, and I knew about him when I was in India. And he, talked about the Illuminati, but like just in a goofy way. Like that became a thing in India, where some famous actor called his production company Illuminati, which, it had nothing to do with Indian stuff, right? But this guy, I liked his verse here. I'm so faded, wasted, and so, I was like, this guy's some kind of English guy. So I found a bunch of his other stuff, and I was in a kind of a good mood for it. And some of the stuff I really liked, some of it's truth-oriented. I want to talk about it here. So as I've gotten older, it's tough for me to listen to some sort of rock or rap, like things that are more, aggressive music. I have to be in the right mood for it. Like your ears get more sensitive. You're just, it's kind of music for young people, but I'm still kind of interested in it. There's some days that I like it, and this was a day I liked it. He did this thing for Bittersweet Symphony. It was kind of interesting.
Crying at a funeral, 9 to 5 crucible. This route is not commutable. Look,
You know, is it like just interesting to see this being done in an English, the English take on rap, and as far as I could tell with this guy, his two big genres or what he covers in subject matter is money, like money and money power in a truther way, and also pills and addiction, which was kind of up for me, especially pharmaceutical drugs. And I'll show you another clip of a song about that, which I really like. I don't love this song. It's called Money Game Part 2. But he has this guy playing a guitar with a bag on his head, and he has other videos with this. He has a couple of videos about money. This was on some sort of award show. And the second verse of this song, he talks about the debt-based economic system by using the metaphor of selling seashells.
Make land, fresh blood on hand 5. Why just shells? Why limit yourself? She sells seashells, tell oil as well. Sing.
The song I like the most is Chalk Outlines. This is a live version. The studio version is better. But it's about pill addiction. And here's...
Just for a while, I'll bury myself with a great big smile.
So, the song is, again, about pill addiction. And, and you can see that this group of people, the young generation, is, they're fucked up. Like they know they're fucked up. They know they have no future. And they're gravitating to truth in different ways. Like the message is getting out in various ways. Like they know that it's, and like I've talked about these indigo children. But, right now they're low functioning. Whining about whatever, whatever it is. I mean, at least that's what I see. But, at some point they're realizing their situation. And, hopefully that can evolve into something of a higher calling, like with the idea of connecting to the divinity within you and then, building something better, right? A rejection of the system that's collapsing. There's one more thing he does here. So he likes to dress up in, hospital attire, institutionalized attire. This is a video called High Red where he has, he's debating another side of himself. Like we've seen this before. This video got 42 million views. His videos get millions of views. And so there's, a level of like understanding here for young people, like I said, that they're fucked. I don't really love this song. It's interesting. Like I didn't dislike it. I couldn't listen to the whole thing. It's 9 minutes long. The instrumental part is kind of interesting in the beginning of the video, and then he goes back and forth with different sides of himself. But this is the the schism and the issues that these kids are growing up with, right? Like you see there's differences in the youth, specifically because of the internet and video games and all the things that they've been exposed to. And their lives are completely different. Their childhoods are completely different from what people like that grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And then in the 2000s, the internet was introduced, and everything changed, right? Like significantly in terms of the socialization of the youth.
talk, man. Because when you're with me, it never seems to help. You think that you can amputate me? I am you.
So he gets into it. I think, like I said, he might be Scottish. I don't know. I didn't look it up. But I found this interesting. I went a whole thing. I was in a good mood, and, I went through a whole, whatever it was I've talked about a little bit in my voiceovers. And I, was kind of happy to see this because of the awareness of, the medication issue and the money power, and that there is no future for them in terms of the current system. There is, this element that's out there in the rap community. Like I said, there's various rappers that are like truther rappers. And, it's an evolution that's, kind of desperately needed. Okay, so this guy, Joseph Robinette Biden, wonderful name, Robinette. Like, it'd be great if that was his first name, because he wouldn't be president. He was handing out a lot of medals. He gave a citizenship medal to Liz Cheney, which I'm not going to show you. And then he gives a Medal of Valor here. And then he gave out medals, which I'm going to show you. That's various people. who, are going to piss people off and people you don't just think deserve medals because medals are stupid. But, like the Medal of Valor, like men who are fighting in whatever it is, right? Doing heroic things. A medal doesn't quite do. If there is something like medal worthy, if somebody does something great, heroic, like a real thing, like how is a medal like statues and trophies and medals are silly things, right? It's just silly. Like, it's just, on a spiritual level, like it's just you did what you did and you're successful and you get whatever benefit there is. Medals and things and any kind of awards and those silly, like, Oscars and Golden Globes, I guess, were last night, which I'm not going to probably cover here unless I get a million, different, I'll never be a million, but I get 20 or 30 different messages on Instagram about something, that fantastical that happened. But these guys did something heroic, but it's the afterwards part here that is kind of worth when he moves to the question areas here. It's that part that gets interesting.
Have done things that are changing not only their lives, the lives of families that were able to celebrate Christmas, were able to, what they did. They saved children. They saved people in serious distress that jumped into freezing water.
They jumped into freezing water. Like they needed a medal. There's water. It's freezing.
They did it all, and I think it's very important that the public see them and know who they are. I know you have all their backgrounds, but they did. They allowed people to continue their lives in ways that they never would have been able to. There's a lot fewer.
You mean they would have died?
Chairs around the kitchen table and dining table because
There would have been less chairs if these guys didn't do their thing. There'd be some kitchen table somewhere with less chairs.
These guys did. And what they did is amazing. They literally put their lives at risk, some of them at the point that you wonder how they could have had the nerve to do it. In addition to that, I want to thank their families. Because if you're the spouse of a firefighter or a police officer, you always worry about that phone call. That one phone call you're going to get when the alarm went off.
Look at his fist, the fist of fury.
And so I want to thank them because I'm confident they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing without their support of their spouses and their families. So thank you guys. I really mean it. You're the best.
He really means it. Like, he's just not bullshitting you.
America has to offer. I'm so damn proud to stand with you. And I know you have a lot of questions for me, and I'm not going to answer unless they relate to this. I'm going to be talking later today. So anybody have any questions about these guys, holler around.
Thank you, press. Thank you.
Mr. President, have you spoken to any of the families of the victims in New Orleans?
Yes, I have.
What have they told you? What have their reflections been?
Thank you, press. Thank you. Let's go, guys.
Any update on the suspects in those incidents?
Let's go, guys. Thank you. Thanks, press. Thank you.
They're ushering him out. Like, as soon as he got a question he wasn't ready for, he got confused, and he could just barely, he's just barely there. Like, he's just a whiff of a person, right? He's fading right before your eyes. So I turned the TV on, and Joe Biden was giving out medals. I don't know when it was, last Friday or Thursday or something like that. And we'll show you the Hillary Clinton one. We'll go to the beginning, too. But he's got the Crypt Keeper mullet here. It's kind of his last big thing. We're getting into, it's today the big day. Today is Monday, January 6th. Big day for Trump and Biden. And I had a number of reactions to this thing. I saw that she was, at the time, she had already gotten her medal, Hillary Clinton. And you know how goofy medals are. Let's show you the Hillary Clinton thing. We'll start with that, and then we'll get into what he says at the beginning here. It's just silly. When I tuned in, it was Magic Johnson getting the Medal of Freedom. It's the silliest medal. I've talked about freedom before. Freedom doesn't exist because you're dependent on so many things: oxygen, water, food. There's no such thing as freedom. Earth is bondage. If you are in a physical body, your life is surrounded by bondage and attachments, and then all the things that you have, families, and these things are all like traps in a way, like things that you have kids and you have to, there's all the responsibilities that go with it, right? You have these things of responsibilities. You have animals, pets, all these things. They're relationships, and there's responsibility that you have for these people. And there's just all these things, and jobs, and food, and and all the things you have to do to live as a human being or a creature on this planet is filled with bondage. We're trapped here, and our souls are trapped here, limited into the physical third-dimensional reality. And so the idea of freedom is never there, because there's no such thing. Like, freedom is, and when you're dealing with the divine universe, you can only do what God wants you to do. Everything else is a mistake that you have to pay for later on. Any choice, egotistical choice that goes against your soul and God's will is the opposite of freedom, because then you have consequences you have to deal with. Anything you do on your own, any addiction you acquire, any mistakes you make, you're going to have to pay for them in one way or another. Everything comes with consequences. And so your choices come with consequences. So freedom is just some silly idea to make you feel like, in these other countries where there was royal families and there was a different kind of a structure, there was even less freedom than you have as an American. But you don't have freedom in America as an American as like you think you do, right? There's less structure in terms of some of the things, but we have law enforcement, we have laws, we have rules, we have all these things. And just the fact that your body needs stuff to keep on going. Like, you're not free from your need for oxygen, for example, or food or water. He can't even do any more groping anymore. He's too stiff to do any good sniffling and snoozing in. This guy right here. Woo! Woo! It's funny, they're all wearing red. They're wearing Republican colors here. Joe and Jill were red when. Woo! Standing ovation for her. Standing O for Hillary. He's gonna. Oh, there was a little sniff. Woo! 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 You did it, Hillary.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Hillary Rodham Clinton. Hillary Rodham Clinton is guided by the Methodist Creed: do all the good you can, in all the ways you can.
Do all the good you can by all the ways you can, because that's what she was known for.
As a lawyer, she defended the rights of children. As First Lady, she fought for universal health care and declared women's rights are human rights.
Women rights, they're not just for women. Women are actually human. Hillary broke that news. She was one of the first women to say, hey, we're actually humans. We're not women, we're humans.
As Senator, she helped New York rebuild after September 11, 2001. As Secretary of State, she championed democracy worldwide, and her nomination for president broke barriers and inspired generations. Through it all, her career has been dedicated to an eternal truth.
Eternal truth. She's about eternal truth. She is not about suppressing truth. She's actually about eternal truth.
America's ideals are sacred, and we must always defend and live by them.
This is Ralph Lauren, which we're later going to find out. He's coming. Okay, so that was Hillary. Let's go to the beginning here. We did some speeches.
1965. President Lincoln had just delivered his inaugural address at the Capitol.
So he's slurring his speech. He can't even, he's just done. He's completely cooked.
The return to the White House, a reception here in the East Room. There were many well-wishers, but he spotted someone whose opinion he greatly valued. President Lincoln asked him what he thought of the speech he had just delivered to the nation by a divided civil war. The man replied, "It was a sacred effort. It was a sacred effort." That man was Frederick Douglass. Here we are nearly 160 years later in a room where Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass stood to unify the nation.
No way, that happened.
Passion to strengthen our resolve as one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's wrap him up here.
Woo!
All right, so we'll go through the various people here as he gives the award. There's Denzel Washington's getting an award. They're all getting it. Like everyone's. Oh, there's that woman, whatever her name is, Anna Couture. But there's one specific thing I saw that I want to talk about. The other ones we'll get through. Oh, Bill Nye. So there's a lot of ones I want to show you. But then there was one specific one that was very interesting. Okay, let's get to this one first. It's Bono. This is Bono. Not Sonny Bono. Sonny Bono's dead. I'm pretty sure Sonny Bono's dead. He's just Bono. And they're going to tell you what Bono is getting an award for.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Bono as the lead singer of
Bono.
U2, one of the most successful rock bands in history. Bono changes the world through his art and activism. In an Irish tradition of poetry and protest.
Boom, look at him. But because he's Irish, he did the thing. Watch him do the fist here. That's excellent. Watch.
The world through his art and activism. In an Irish tradition of poetry
Boom.
and protest, rebellion and rejoicing, he has composed anthems to peace and civil rights. As a humanitarian, he lifts up causes from ending poverty and disease to calling for debt relief for developing nations. The common beat of his...
Okay, so Bono is... There's a character that Bono does called Mephisto. And I showed you this. He did this thing, this red brand on Jimmy Kimmel, where he dresses up like the devil. And it's his alter ego. And, you know, the stuff that he does that people think is philanthropy... I always struggle with that word, but I nailed it. He's explaining to Joe Biden here. He's always on the wrong side of things, and it's always, you know, he pretends to be like a speak truth to power guy, but he's clearly not. Like you guys all know about Bono, right? And so, you know, these are the kind of people that they're rolling out here.
His life's work is the power of freedom, a tie that also binds Ireland and America as beloved friends.
Bono, get it done, Bono. Woo! No standing O for Bono. Like Hillary gets a standing O because she believes in eternal truth. And she has whatever, alcoholism, which probably Bono does as well. So he does this thing with Hillary here. And then not Hilaria. That's not a real name. Like it's not just Hillary. He did a little snoozle there. Remember, he gave her that uncomfortable hug. But this is interesting because, well, I'll show you.
Michael J. Fox.
Okay, so, the thing is here is, I showed you that doctor who said Joe Biden has Parkinson's. And it was very clear if that guy was, it was like a no-brainer. The way he said it was like a slam dunk. And I don't have access to that kind of knowledge and diagnosis of, medical, mainstream medical information about diagnosing someone with Parkinson's. But the way he's made it sound and the way that he showed and demonstrated were the symptoms that Joe Biden has. And I believe Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's, right? That's what he has. So, he has early onset or whatever it is. But this is what Joe Biden, there's two guys here with Parkinson's, right? It's kind of hard to watch.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox is one of the most beloved actors of our time. With
Look,
remarkable
he did the fist again.
wit and charm, he introduced iconic characters to the center of American culture, from Alex P. Keaton to Marty McFly and more. With
They're all
undaunted
laughing.
resilience and optimism, he also warms hearts and captivates audiences as a fearless advocate for those with Parkinson's disease, channeling his endearing personality.
So, you know, if this doctor was right, and I can't imagine he's not, Joe Biden has, you know, he's got, I mean, he doesn't have early stage Parkinson's. He is, you know, midway through. And he's, you know, this is his future, right? Like Michael J. Fox got at a younger age. Whatever it is, I'm not sure how even it works, right? But this is the same kind of issues that Joe Biden's starting to have, right? Just like this bizarre moment here.
To advance treatments, move us closer to a cure, and remind us of the power of American possibilities.
So there's that, you know, Parkinson's on Parkinson's thing here. So he gives it to Magic Johnson. This is why I tuned into the thing. And it's the next one that's kind of the big one for me. But here.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Irvin Magic Johnson.
Now, again, you know, this is just like whatever this thing is, right? I mean, it's arbitrary because it's very political. Like it's based in, you know, whoever's president gives whatever it is, right? But Magic Johnson got AIDS, and it's because he was cheating on his wife, right? And he might have, you know, been bisexual. There's all that kind of stuff, rumors or whatever. Either way, he was cheating on his wife. And that was kind of his, you know, I mean, he's a great basketball player, but that was his sort of hallmark thing. And they're going to say things, I'm sure, about his relationship to the AIDS community. But, you know, it's not like it's a badge of honor, right? What?
Unmatched vision and versatility, Irvin Magic Johnson drove the Showtime era for the Los Angeles Lakers. 5-time NBA champion, 3-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, Olympic gold medalist, and the Naismith Hall of Famer. Under the same bright lights, his honesty about his HIV status shattered stigma and saved lives.
Woo! It's not a medal where, you know, it's not something you should get a medal for, right? He got HIV, right? Because of his whatever ways. So, you know, there's magic. But here's the weird moment here. I forgot about this.
Retired athlete to build a true business empire, he champions underserved communities. With a legendary will and smile, Magic Johnson rose from the playground in Lansing, Michigan, to become one of the most beloved athletes of our time.
Now look at him. What is he presenting here? Like, look at Joe Biden looking. Is that is this an open? Like he's looking here. This is just a great moment. Like what's happening here, Joe? Look at his face here. Be gentle, Joe. Like just what has happened? Like what is just going on here? You know, I had this on. Like I didn't see this till just this moment, but like I had the TV on and it was in the background and I was doing things. And it was the next one that made me think I was going to include this in a video. Because you know, these awards come all the time. Look at, she's laughing here. She's got her hand over her face. Just whatever. Woo. Look at, like, holy crap. Like, look at Bill Nye. Look at this guy. He's into it. Take it easy there, Joe. Hey, thumbs up. Gave the thumbs up.
Accepting on behalf of Robert Francis Kennedy is Carrie Kennedy.
So this is RFK Sr. And this is where I noticed this. I'm like, oh, wow, this has got to be talked about, because here's Mitt Romney, and we'll get into that in a moment. Mitt Romney's coming. She was a staunch Joe Biden supporter. And a number of the Kennedys worked for the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. So they turned on their brother, who, you know, for what he stood for and what he was saying. And, you know, the fact that this guy was senile, which we all know now, he got booted, and that they stabbed their brother in the back and all that stuff. But he's the eldest. You know, he's Robert Kennedy. He's RFK Jr., right? He's Robert Kennedy Jr. So he's the eldest, and his father is his namesake. And he was a champion of environmental liberal policies and was very popular in the Liberal and Democratic Party, RFK Jr., until he did whatever he did. He was running against Joe Biden. Joe Biden at first would not allow him to primary him, even though he was senile and they were going to kick him out. They wouldn't let him primary. They wouldn't put a primary up where RFK Jr. could be their nominee. And then he wouldn't give him Secret Service protection, even though there was some, you know, death threats and things like this, right? And so now RFK Jr. might be health secretary. He's a much more prominent person. You know, she's whatever she is. And why wouldn't he be the one getting the award? I mean, he shares the name. He's junior, right? She's the eldest. And so, you know, this isn't partisan because Mitt Romney's right fucking here. I mean, it's not supposed to be partisan. But this is like creepy and just wrong on every level.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Robert Francis Kennedy. Born into a revered family of service, Robert F. Kennedy forged the path toward freedom that endures today. Guided by the Constitution as his conscience, he was a key strategist to his brother's success.
I mean, the whole stuff with RFK Jr., a big part of that is they're linked to Big Pharma, the whole political establishment. Like whatever RFK Jr. is or isn't, in terms of, you know, being a shill or not, or being whatever, controlled opposition, it's still like this is like fucked up that he's not there, right? Because, you know, this is like Joe Biden's personal stuff and then Big Pharma. And like I don't even know if he's in the audience, but he's there in D.C. He's Trump's health secretary nominee, and he'd be a long-standing Democrat, right? And he has a relationship with Joe Biden, all these people, until he decided to primary him and run against him, and now he's the whole Democratic Party turned on him. So here's the end of that. There they are, everyone but Bobby. Bobby's not there. Woo.
Anyone not a Kennedy, stand up.
Ralph Lauren.
Ralph Lauren. Woo!
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Ralph Lauren. The son of Polish immigrants and a U.S. Army veteran, Ralph Lauren transformed a small necktie business into one of America's most iconic brands.
Okay, so this is like getting goofy. Did he say a son of American, a soldier, and immigrants? Like, what's happening with Ralph Lauren? But I want to get to Mitt Romney here. You know, it's a creepy thing here. Having someone wrap their arms around your neck and, you know, come up from behind. Especially Joseph Robinette Biden. And strangle you with this medal. Woo! There it is. There's your seat. Take a seat, Ralph. All right, good. You got it, buddy.
William Sanford Nye.
Bill Nye. Look at double fist. He gave him the double fist, Biden did. He double fisted him.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to William Sanford Nye, a Washington, D.C. native Bill Nye began his career as a cutting-edge mechanical engineer in Seattle.
Boom, he did it. The cutting-edge mechanical engineer. The reason Bill Nye sucks, he did a reboot of his show on Netflix, and it was more for adults who used to watch his show when he was a kid. But I'm sure kids watched it. And it was right at the time when this whole thing was happening with the gender stuff, right? And he did a whole episode with this idea that there was a difference between gender and sexuality. Your sex was one thing and your gender was something else, right? So there was this idea, and he came out and said, scientists are now finding that there's a difference. And he gave scientific validation to something there's no scientific evidence, and there's no way there'd be ever any scientific evidence that there is a difference between gender and sexuality. Like this was just some made up shit that they were doing and saying. So what happened was at this DSM-5, the psychiatrists that make the diagnostic manual for the psychiatric and psychological world with all the different mental illnesses, all the pathologies and things, they changed what used to be called gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria. So they took something that they said used to be a disorder, which was that you believed that you were a person who, you were the opposite sex. And so they used to call that a disorder. But in 2015, I think it was, 16, whatever it was, when that thing was rolled out, the DSM-5 said, well, this is just dysphoria. And it's just made up stuff, right? Like whatever their diagnosis is, they were influenced by the Hollywood morality and these things. But there was no scientific data that showed that there's a difference between gender and sexuality. When you're talking about something that's psychological, they come up with these constructs, and some things are considered disorders, some things are considered genetic and, brain issues and, whatever it is. And then other things are considered personality issues. Some of it's based in your like depression runs in your family, and it's considered, genetic, but also social. These various types of mental illnesses. But they discount environmental things like electricity, which neurasthenia, I've talked about this so much. Neurasthenia was a Russian doctor discovered this when they started to use telegraph. And the telegraph operators started to develop a lot of the things that are now considered modern day psychological issues, like depression and, things like ADHD and things like this, that were not there before and all of a sudden started to come out, with electricity being just, these were just telegraph operators, never mind everyone who then had electricity in their homes. It affected people. Electricity affects people. Just like now all these different, Wi-Fi and all that stuff that's beaming around people's houses. And so now 5G, 4G before it. It affects the body, affects the mind. It's, this affects the equilibrium, but also living in cities. People were designed, like every animal, to live, in an environment. They had a certain environment that you would live in, and people living in cities wasn't part of that. These constructs of cities where people do really badly psychologically and physically. And so, in all that, there's just a lot of fucked up things going on that have messed people up. And they won't tell you what those things are, like what some of these factors are, right? And then all the other issues that people have, like some things are genetic, right? But Bill Nye came out and said that there was a difference between, like, he gave it scientific validation. And when you're studying psychological, science, it's based in, they don't even know what happens when you go to sleep. Like, they don't understand exactly what happens. Like, what happens like that moment between where you're awake and then you're asleep. Like, they don't understand that. I was going to do a whole video about this. And so there was no evidence saying that there's a difference between, just people saying this, right? People believing this in themselves. But that's not, that would usually be considered something that used to be considered a psychological disorder. And he's put his scientific stamp of approval because he's not a real scientist. Because you can't say something scientific. This is the whole thing where they, I'm a scientist, so I know more than you, kind of thing that they did with Fauci. This was the religion of science. And so this guy's a real piece of shit, is what I'm saying, because he's not true to science. Either something's a scientific fact or it's not. And then you should be very clear about it is, well, because he said, we're now discovering, making it like, well, it's a truth that we haven't yet proven yet, right? But you'll never prove it because it's not something that's provable because it's not real.
Becoming a beloved science educator for the nation, earning 19 Emmy Awards for his energetic experiments on television.
He won Emmys, so he got other awards, so Bill Nye. So this is where this thing's fucked up, because Mitt Romney ran against Joe Biden and Barack Obama, so they're political adversaries. But he turned on Trump, so he became kind of a Joe Biden guy, but even though they were political opponents. And he's receiving an award for his dead father, just the way that RFK Jr. should have received the award for his dead father. And even more so because he's a junior, like he's literally the eldest son. But he's not giving it to RFK Jr., he doesn't have him there, which is just, like this little petty little protocols because, this guy was a Republican, or is a Republican, and they're part of the same club, and RFK Jr., when he did whatever he did to violate that club, because he had a relationship with Joe Biden, RFK Jr. did. He knew him for years, and they were part of this whole thing. If RFK Jr. didn't run for president, he'd be receiving this award for his dad. They got this Democratic shill, but the Democratic Party is nothing like what the Kennedys, RFK and JFK stood for. When they were around, the Democratic Party has fallen into, censorship. I mean, this guy censored RFK Jr. on social media, pressured the social media companies to censor RFK Jr. These other things that happen, right? It's just so an effed up thing. And Mitt Romney, I'm sure he has siblings, but he chose him to receive the award, or whatever the family did. And I don't know how they decided to do the RFK Jr. the way they did him. But that's why these things are just goofy. They're not real, right? There's no real protocol or etiquette or anything like this. And, I think RFK Jr. must have received other awards. I'll go look that up. But, he's been around. He's been dead for a while. And there was Carter and there was Clinton. And what other Democratic presidents were there? Were there any between when he died? Whatever it was, right? So there's Nixon, Carter, and Clinton. So, I'm sure they do this bullshit every year. I'm sure RFK Jr. had already received some of these awards. And Obama, right? So there's 3 chances for him to receive an award. So this might be his second, RFK Jr.'s second award. So they never gave RFK Jr. a Medal for Freedom before this, which is bizarre. I'm sure his dad got it, and why they waited this long, and why they waited till, I think he does this every year, right? They don't do this just at the end of his presidency. I don't know. I don't care. Who cares? But this is the big one everyone's upset about coming.
Accepting on behalf of George Soros is Alex Soros.
Woo. So George Soros. Now, in the right-wing branch of the truth community, George Soros is the devil. And when any shill like Alex Jones and the other shills and all the, the fake truthers, and when they demonize a certain person, and then the rest of the people pile on, and then whoever that guy was, Glenn Beck and these people, they had to have a villain, and George Soros was that villain. George Soros, I'm sure, wasn't a good guy. He's a Democratic shill, and he does all these things, but he became like this. There's the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and these perennial, families, and George Soros was not amongst them, right? He was on a lower level, but he became this sort of lightning rod for this whole thing. It's Soros, right? But now he's dead because his son's, I don't know when he died, but his son's collecting it here. But there's that. So then there's Denzel Washington. I've talked about the Oscars. Like, Hollywood is the biggest industry for congratulating itself and honoring itself, right? We have all these various types of specific awards and then overall awards, Golden Globes, and things that, cover a variety of different genres of entertainment. But it's always patting itself on the back. But they also get awards from political figures, right? And so RFK Jr. was passed up for years. RFK Sr. was passed up for years. You know, he was a real political hero for whatever reason, at least to the Democrats. 3 presidents passed on the guy. He didn't have one of these things. Well, so it's kind of shocking to me. Carter, Clinton, and Obama. And Biden's waiting until he's out to give him an award. But they've given all these actors, people like Ellen DeGeneres got an award from Obama, like shit like that, right? Big hug. We did it. Woo! Woo! Woo, we did it. Woo! Michael J. Fox likes that. And so,
Anna Wintour.
woo! Woo! Now this fashion goal. So he's given 2 awards to people who were in the demonic, ghoulish fashion industry. She's a real ghoul. I mean, just like silly shit, right? I think that might be it. I'll look through the rest of them. So Anna Wintour was the last one. And Joe Biden does his typical shit here. Woo! Here's a little, we're trying to get like his little run there.
That was that group, huh?
Yeah, whoa, you nailed it. Woo! Woo! Okay, so, Jesus Christ. I got some voiceovers here to do. A comment thing to get to, which is kind of a couple comments. It's kind of an epic thing I did yesterday. I did 3 voices over yesterday. I'm going to do a introductory one today. But this is just, I mean, what are we doing here? Like, it's just a mess. Our country and our culture is a mess, right? Okay, so Monday, January 6th, yesterday I did this last voiceover. There's one more thing I wanted to add to my introduction, the first introduction to this video. We now live in a time where people's inner reality can be viewed as reality, right? So you guys might remember the Common Core math where they said if the child got the answer wrong, but they kind of showed that they were going in the right direction, they would get credit. And, math is math, right? The number, there's right answers and wrong answers. Remember, Will Smith said that, 2 and 2 can equal 5 if I say it's going to equal 5, right? 2 and 2 can be whatever I want it to be. And so people's distorted realities have been validated, and this spread into the truth community, into the right wing, who have adopted these policies. So this is all the people that think their opinions have some basis in reality. Like your subjective view is reality. And it's now been validated by the system where they're saying that, you make something up and that can be viewed as truth, right? Whatever it might be about your orientation, your sexual orientation, your, whatever's going on in terms of the gender thing, but then all throughout our society. There's a saying about the borderline personality disorder, changing the facts to fit your feelings, right? Which is, something that's done by everybody now. The borderline personality disorder is like one of the worst psychological conditions to deal with amongst psychological professionals. There's these access to personality disorders, narcissistic personality disorder, and then there's the borderline personality disorder, and then antisocial personality disorder, which is the new name for sociopath. And those personality disorders are usually for people who are highly intelligent, but just nightmare people. And distorting reality is what they do really well, and it affects other people. They're able to distort other people's reality based on what they feel, like their emotions. And so their emotions tell them to feel a certain way. They have a certain way of viewing something, and then they rearrange the facts so that their emotions are justified, right? Even when they're completely in the wrong, even when they're, anybody who saw the whole story would say, oh, you're an awful person. They find a way to be the victim or find a way to distort reality to justify their emotional state, which is a a plague that you can see all over the internet, right? So that's when I talk about these comments, like people's distortion of reality, their view of me or the channel or whatever, their personal, experience of it. Like, I don't need to know about it and don't want to know about it, right? Anything that you're distorting the situation to make me the villain or even, a hero in a sense, or making me more than I am, right? Like, that's your distorted reality. Like, there's the truth of the matter, and then there's everybody's opinion. But opinions now, because of the age of the internet, like, everyone thinks their opinions and their beliefs are so important. And at the same time, thinking everyone else's opinions and beliefs are shit and need to be called out, right? And so this is where we live in. And none of it matters. None of it is going to affect, it's going to affect each person personally, and we can affect each other to some extent, but we're not going to change what's going to happen and what is happening globally and even our personal lives. Our opinions have no bearing. They can make things worse for us, but they don't solve the problem. Your opinion or your belief about something doesn't change the thing you're going through. It usually just makes it worse, right? And so we live in a time where people think that their individual view of reality is important, and it's not, right? It's just, it's certainly bad in terms of being important in a bad way, but it has nothing to do with the situation itself. It can be funny or entertaining, right? There can be value in it. But we live in the time of distorting reality, a distorted reality. There's what's happening, in our material world, and there's what's going on beyond it spiritually, which is the real truth. And then there's everyone else's, all of our opinions and feelings about, emotions and feelings and things about what's happening. When they ask you, how do you feel about that, right? Like when a therapy, the teacher, or, the modern day people, how do you feel about that, right? How does that make you feel? It fucking doesn't matter at all. Like, it's just a question that shouldn't exist, right? It makes me feel scared. Well, let's explore that for a little bit. It's just, I have a master's in counseling. I know how this shit goes. I know the way this is, like, these things don't matter. Like, you have to deal with shit, right? Well, how do you feel about that? I don't know. I feel frozen inside. Well, let's talk about that for 10 more sessions. Well, you got to deal with your shit, right? Like, you can't afford to feel frozen inside. It's a part of being detached from reality, from our primary needs. Like, all our primary things like food and, heat and all these things that we enjoy are done for us. So we're not, like, when you're starving, you don't give a shit about how you feel about shit. Like, if you're desperate for water or physical things, you're under life-threatening circumstances, you have to act, right? You have to, you just can't, like, fall apart. And, like, people are being given permission to just fall apart. Oh, that's just too much for you. It's overwhelming. It's too much for you. Take this medication, right? And then the medication distorts your reality, which is a whole thing, right? The whole psychological medication or self-medicating. Then people are, numbing themselves to the pain that they're experiencing, right? The reason, and that numbs themselves to reality because the pain is reality, right? Pain is, there wouldn't be pain if there wasn't a purpose for it. Like, pain exists for a reason. The pain of birth, like the whole birthing process is very painful, right? Things are pleasurable for a reason. So you'll do them, right? So you'll continue to live. You'll eat and you'll drink and you'll reproduce. These are all pleasurable things because otherwise you would die. It was a proliferation of life. But pain is also there. And it has a purpose, right? And so this distorted reality has been validated. The validation of the distorted reality is what we see now. And everybody's reality now, everyone has their own little spaces for their reality on social media and into the comment section. And, like, everyone thinks their opinions are important and they're not. Like, your opinion is, if you want to express it, sure. If it's important to you to express it, it's good to verbalize things inside of you, but also understanding why that is. Like, what's the benefit of this? Expressing how you feel about things. Like, when you're waking up to the truth community stuff, there has to be some self-expression of this. Your experience now of realizing the system you're 100% dependent on is not what you thought it was. It's an illusion. And so when you have these experiences, like, you have to get them out and you have to talk to people with them, right? And, and then you're trying to understand things. But it's ultimately it's about, helping you adapt and change to something that you were living a lie before, and now you're You're trying to cope with like how that's affected you, but what are you going to do moving forward? You know, reading the ingredients and things, all these things. But you know, distorted reality becoming, you know, like all these little versions of reality that are out there is not helpful to the overall collective. Where people will see a movie or they'll see an event, and everyone will have a complete different description and experience of it. You know, I talked about this with the Duke lacrosse team, and all these people turned on these guys, and you know, there's a reason people hate Duke and hate these guys and the frat boy, and you know, they did do wrong by inviting these local strippers, and you know, there's shit about it that was very unsavory. But there's a woman who wrote a very, you know, she was a local journalist in the Durham area, and she later apologized to them, wrote a, you know, apology letter that was published because she convicted them when they weren't guilty. And then she came out and said in the documentary, the HBO, the 30 for 30 thing, that she had been sexually assaulted in college. And so she looked at these Duke lacrosse players as her abuser. And so immediately convicted them because she saw her abuser in them, right? And this is what people are doing all the time. They have whatever their experiences are, and they just look at people and say, yeah, you're that person for me, right? And then they have these feelings for somebody they don't even know because of unresolved shit in their own system and their own distorted, you know, experiences and the distortion of reality. And like, you know, victim consciousness is a big part of that. And so rearranging the actual events that happen and remembering them in a way that wasn't accurate. And that's also kind of fucking up the world. All right, let's get into the comments here. Okay, so I got some really great comments to get to. I kind of got a headache, so at 1 o'clock, I don't know if it's the barometric pressure. I get a little bit of these minor sort of migraines, sometimes before rainstorms and other things. We'll see what happens. But like, I'm just kind of low energy. But I kind of got a great comment, you know, that in a, you know, bad comment that's great that I want to address. And I then got a follow-up comment where someone was saying the exact opposite, like a positive comment. I want to read that. And it's kind of just interesting in terms of what people think and whatever it is. So let me read the first comment, and there's different layers to this. Now I'm not going to read the whole thing because it was like really long. Like, you know, like I was like, you know, the guys, I mean, I was going to mock it. Like I knew I wanted to, you know, make fun of the comment. But I'm like, I can't read this, right? So Hilaria forgets English word for onion in 2025, and chaos begins. And so this person says, looks like one of your devout cult members got offended already, so I have to repost this in its entirety. And so he's calling you guys who are my viewers cult members, which would be, I mean, it's the worst cult ever because, well, like this person's going to contradict themselves in the comment, which I'll say, right? Let me go through some of the initial points here because it's like multifaceted. Paul, I'm going to cut to the chase and make it simple for you because your ego is too weak and my time is too short. Right? You're losing viewership because you suck, plain and simple. There I said it. The true test is whether or not you can accept it. Now, the arrogance of this person, that they think their opinion is the opinion of everybody and, you know, their soul, like saying that I suck and that it's the true test is whether I can accept I suck or not, right? Because I already do accept that I suck, right? I'm not, you know, there's no ego in me thinking that like my videos are and who I am as a person is a completed, I've made it and I'm just like, you know, I'm a finished product because it's clearly not what I say in my, you know, the Sajmark system. I've talked about this before. You know, I've told that story over and over where the guy goes to the guru and he says, bring me the worst thing in the world. I don't want to repeat this story. But, you know, there's my understanding of that. But just in terms of my videos, like in terms of my video production, when I go back and listen to some of my old videos, I'm like, oh, I would have done this better now. Or, you know, I can see where an older version of me, I'm like, oh, this sucks. Like, I'm like, you know, in terms of my interpretation of it, to some people it would be great because of whatever level they're on. But with the level I'm on now, the older version of my videos, I don't like as much, right? Like I've evolved My consciousness has evolved, and I can see things I would change, things I would do differently, things that I maybe believed then I don't believe now. So there's an evolution, right? And comparatively, like Master Chargy is an example of this, but there's other people in the Sajmark system who are, in terms of the spiritual content that I produce, would be better at doing this job for some audiences, like higher developed audience, higher consciousness people, right? And, I always talk about when I was young and like I looked at myself now, I look at myself as, a dummy, my old version of myself, right? There's a great movie called Looper where Bruce Willis plays an older version of that kid. He's in a lot of good movies. He played the kid on Third Rock from the Sun, a show I didn't watch. But now he's in whatever that guy's name is. Gordon Levitt or something like that? I think so. Don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. And they were having a conversation in a bar, or in a diner. And Bruce Willis is like, you're dumb and you suck and you won't, like you don't even know what you don't know, like this stuff, right? And so, like, there's just that. Like, there's, and I don't pretend to be a finished product, and even in terms of my videos, right? And so saying I suck, like, that's just not anything. Like, it's not, you have to look at a person's goal, right? This person wrote a very long comment. They say they don't have a lot of time. And let me go back to the comment here. Like where they said in the beginning here. Where is it? Where it is? Okay. I'm going to cut to the chase and make it simple because your ego is too weak and my time is too short. The person put a ton of time into this. And if you say that I suck, this comment sucks for a variety of reasons, which I'll get into. But why are you listening? Like, this person's put a lot of effort. There were categories. Like, I saw just, like, there was multiple sections of where this person was dissecting why I suck for certain things. And I'll talk about two of the things because I only saw two of them. It was long. I'm like, I kept on scrolling. I'm like, this comment goes on forever. The people I least respect that come to my channel and on the internet are people who just listen to things to hate on them or really secretly like them and can't admit why. And maybe the person said what they like about my channel or what they like about what I do here. I don't know, because I couldn't read the whole comment because this person has too much time and posted an unsolicited comment that they know I'm not interested in, right? And so here's the first part to that. I'm not asking for customer feedback or viewer feedback as a way to better my video making qualities, right? Let me just say this thing. So I saw two categories this guy posted on, and he said that one of them was viewer engagement, and I think that's the way it was said, and the other one was production qualities, the quality of my video making, right? And so, like, that's silly that the person would even post that because as much as they've watched my videos, so to be able to say I suck, they have to watch a certain amount of my videos, right? They have to, they haven't watched two videos. They haven't watched one video. They've been watching me over a number of years, right? And so knowing what I do and what I think is my role here, I think, I have something to perform here. I believe that, God wants me to do this. And so the premise of this guy's thing where he started off by saying, looks like your devout cult members got offended already. So you're saying I have cult members, but I don't have good engagement with my audience? Like these people are just walking fucking contradictions, right? And, like, just think about what you're saying. Because you're trying to make an argument of me sucking. And you're saying part of it is that my engagement with my audience sucks, which of course it does because I'm not social. And I've said this over and over again. I'm sitting in my bed talking to myself with my two dogs, right? There's no people here. I'm not engaging with my audience because there is no audience. And so in terms of the comment section, I do have some engagement, which is there's people like this I make comment videos about. And there's other things that people write that are maybe affect me in some way, or there's information they share that's going to happen. That's happened already because I'm going to cover somebody recommending a song. Hopefully I'll have already done that. You've already watched that. I haven't done it yet because of the headache. And I'm a little bit low energy. I want to be more upbeat for that because it's kind of a positive thing. I want to talk about this, this music this guy Ren. You've probably already heard that, right? But there's some level of engagement, but I don't have relationships with any of these people. So I can't be a cult leader with no relationships, right? Some people donate money, which is great and generous, which I appreciate, and they're showing that they believe that there's some value in what I do here. And then there's comments that people leave, messages that people send me, where people provide me with information that's helpful for me, where they do research for me. They see something that I might cover, they see our news story, and they bring my attention to it, which I'm very grateful for, because that's like, helps me save some time and effort in doing these things. And that's about the size of it. Then people benefit or don't from my, they come and they go, and there's no interaction. So calling this a cult would be silly, because there is no engagement. And saying that as a reason that I suck, I already know that I suck I'm one of the least social people. I'm very introverted. I have like social issues, right? Like there was a woman, my wife and I met at a farmer's market. I don't know if she's still watching these videos, but she recognized me because I'm walking my 2 dogs, Buddy and Tulsi. And we were traveling too, so it was interesting. And she, we started to talk, and I kind of, was get my wife to be more my wife's very social. My wife's very good social skills. And so I was like, and she was like, you always say you have social issues, and I never see it, because when I hear you, I feel like you're very well socially developed, because it feels like a conversation I'm having with you or something, right? It seems personal, which it kind of is, because where I am social is on one-on-one, small groups, making fun of the bigger group kind of thing, sitting in the back of the class, looking at each other, making jokes about, the teacher, whatever. That's where I was good. Like have a few friends, whatever, and like being on the outskirts, but really not a part of the group and not socializing, being maybe ironic and making fun of the party or the, thing that we're at, not just, I don't engage with groups and these things. But this woman's like, oh, now I see it, right? Because like I didn't know how to, interact with her, because I don't, like I'm not good at it, right? I'm socially awkward, and I don't know how to make small talk, and I don't know how to relate to people. I'm, some ways, I'm not really from here, like, like I'm in a human body, but I'm not, this is not like congruent with me. But for a person to call this a cult and then say you don't engage socially in terms of the viewer engagement, well, that's not what my channel's about. And the other thing was production values and quality of my video and whatever it was, editing, these types of things. And again, I'm not going to go to video school. See, I'm not here to make movies. So the sole benefit of me making videos, the reason I do this job, is what I have inside of me. The work that's been done spiritually on me, and the work that I've done spiritually, the stories I have, the evolution that I've had, past life stuff, whatever I am, whatever level of consciousness I've reached, my interpretation of things, my jokes, my, what's inside of me that I could express that might be interesting to people. And some people found it interesting, and so I started making more videos. That was never the goal. Like, I didn't think about this. It wasn't a goal like, oh, I have all these things to say. I had information to share. I had like an experiment like my family was doing, which was going from being regular suburban people to learning farm skills and all the things that we were learning and the things I knew about Saj Marg. So I had information to share. It was like, I had information that other people might be interested in, my experiences of working as a counselor in treatment centers, and my understanding of abuse and the culture of abuse, and the abusive nature of things, and my insights to things. I had all those things, but I had no idea people would be interested. I thought I put it out there, and there was an audience of people who are interested in what I have to say about things, my interpretation of reality, whether it be joking about, whether it be mocking celebrities, whether it be talking about the spiritual stuff. What I have inside, people are interested in hearing what it is. About 4,000 to 5,000 people a day, with the idea that it's being blocked by it's being, I'm in, the shit list of YouTube, right? Like, it would be more people. Like, there'd be more people who had access to this. But I recognize that, especially with my evolution, that it's less and less people that can kind of rise up to whatever it is. Not that I'm on the highest level, but I'm a higher level than the normal person in terms of my, consciousness level and things. Not in any egotistical way, because I don't look at it like I'm grading, that I'm being graded on a curve. Whatever amount of time I've spent on Earth, and I think I've been here a while, maybe trapped here, I don't know. But in terms of my, spiritual journey, and like there's there's no way of evaluating like how much I've progressed given the amount of time I've been here, right? Or whatever it is. Like this isn't like an ego thing in terms of any of that stuff. I mock people or whatever it is, but the things that I have to offer are either worth people viewing and they want to hear them, or they're not. And it isn't going to be me just, oh my God, I really want to make videos or movies, because I don't. Like maybe at some time I like parts of that, right? But I'm not going to go to film school, editing school, and learn to get my production values up and concentrate on that stuff because, I do a pretty good job with what my skill level is, with the amount of effort and energy I have to put into that. But the central value of this channel is my ideas, my internal world, and my experience, and the things that I've been right about. So many of them being to, pattern recognition, being dyslexic, seeing things differently. Those are the things that have value here. And either they don't have enough value for me to keep doing it, that my audience, there is no audience there. But, in terms of most content out there that gets more views and people who get more views are more mainstream and they're on a much lower level of consciousness. Like I could dumb down my message, right? And, get more viewers. I could be a Christian or be say I'm a Christian or say I'm a Trumper or any number of things. Say I'm a Taylor Swiftie. And I can always figure out what people want to hear, and I could pretend to be one of you guys. Like I could. I can't because that's not in my character. But I could. Like if I could get over it, if I really just want to get lots of views and I want to catfish people, which I don't, like it's not, again, and it wouldn't, like I would feel good about doing that. It would be hard for me to show up and do that, to make really dumb content for really dumb people. And there's a lot of dumb people in the truth community, right-wing people, and whatever it is. And, there's still an audience here, despite my being kind of an asshole, sometimes being blunt, saying things to the Trumpers and the flat earthers. There's still Trumpers that come here. There's still flat earthers who come here, right? Even though I don't agree with whatever they're doing, or a number of things that I say that hurt people, like this commenter, and they still come back and watch because they know there's something's here worth watching, right? And it isn't the production values, and it isn't the quality of my social skills, because those things suck, right? It's the quality of what I have inside to share with people. And, you have to be honest with yourself. Why are you still here? Because I don't want you here. I tell fucking people all the time, I don't want you here. If you got complaints, go somewhere else. I'm not here for to dump your shit on me because, again, like I am evolving and changing and through the spiritual process that I have. And so getting advice from you guys, like saying, getting feedback from you guys, what could I do more to get you guys to like me or want to watch me, is never something you're going to hear coming out of my mouth, because I'm not doing it for that, right? Like I'm not doing it to cater to your needs and demands and things, because I'm not looking at like you guys are weak-minded people that just want me to say good things about your egos and make you feel good egotistically. The people that value this channel need to change and grow and be pushed, and need to, be able to look up to something, not in a, like looking up to me, but looking up to the principles that I say. Like, I struggle living up to the Sajmark principles and the character development things. Like it's a struggle for me. I'm not, like there's things I say that I believe that I can't necessarily do. I can't rise up to, right? But, I would like to. But I just, I can't. Like, or right now I can't, or whatever. I can only do what I can do, right? But there are these things that they're fundamental spiritual truths, and I know what they are, whether I can fully embrace them or I can fully do them myself or whatever. And so these are things to strive to, not in terms of like pandering to a bunch of people so that they'll watch me and, like my videos and share them and tell people how great I am. Like I'm not, I'm in social interaction, so I'm not here to feed your ego. Like I'm not here to make you feel good about your, your whatever's going on with you. Like if there's anything here, it's like, to help people rise up to a higher level. It's to help people change, People come here, if they're going to stay, change is probably going to be necessary. Because if they're already above me in some way, then why would you watch? And so, like, if you're needing something, like you need some, some inspiration of something like a higher level of consciousness, and to aspire to do that, even if you're just a young person who's needs to understand like this, like the struggles that I've gone through because I'm an elder, I'm old, like I'm 60, that the things that I've been able to, work my way through, right? And so the value is in that. And even despite all the limitations I have as a human being in terms of social skills and, production value skills and whatever other things this person, listed as why I suck, none of those things is what I do here. And that's why I don't ask for your feedback, because you guys will say different things. So to get to that, here's the other comment. This person, let me start here. It's a three-parter. And again, and that's not the first one. I'm not sure where's the first. Here's the one right here. Okay. No, that's the wrong one. That's the last one. Here. Okay, here it is. Fine. I kept on clicking on ones. It seems like it was open different ones. I don't know what's going on. So this person wrote to the same video. I've been listening to you and became very close to Paul from my perspective after a near-fatal car accident in 2018, trying to conceive a baby with my wife during this time. Then 2020 came together with 12-hour night shifts of killing time, listening to a lot of Paul. I felt really in tune spiritually or mentally, maybe even delusionally to Paul until I had a kid in 2021. My life happened personally, chaos happened, and I lost connection with Paul. And as usual, Paul hit it on the head by talking about criticizing him, which I did a couple weeks ago. I was not in a good place. My soul was, I guess, a little bit tormented with all the kinds of 43-year-old issues, becoming a father, living in a country that I was not raised in, just such a mess. My less than 3 years life, such a mess. My less 3 years of life last. The person meant last. My last 3 years of life have been that thinking about it right now just took a little out of me. Okay, switch over to another part of the comment here. This keeps on pulling up the wrong comment. I don't know why. Okay, there's that one. There's that one, which is like, it keeps on pulling up the other wrong comment here. So I click on one comment and it pulls up the other one. So, but here's the one. I found it. The second part of this. I did delete my not very coherent comment. I made it with my mind was constructive criticism on new ideas for Paul to change up his content because the truth community, if there ever was one, does not exist anymore. It's mainstream now to not trust your government, and even YouTube content creator is trying to cash in on it. My point is, Paul, you're right. I knew your thoughts on other people's opinions are unwanted content ideas, but I was like I said, you said you were having my personal issues. It was like I said, and you said having my own personal issues. I'm sorry for writing so much, but that's not because it means a lot. It means a lot to me, your opinion, Paul, and obviously not important for you, but my peace of mind so I can get on the same wave that I was in 2021, a good place spiritually. I need to get this off my chest, especially listening to you talk about this. I live a very silent life. I barely even speak English, my first language, in my situation. So when I need to talk, I go off on rants. That's like this, but that's me. Just happy you still here, Paul, holding it down as the let me just find it. This is a new comment here. Holding it down as the holding it down as the kids say, trying to get my sanity a little more non-insane. LOL. God bless, Paul. Thank you. Sorry for the grammar. I write a lot and I speak and straight from my mind and heart. You know what annoys me, just in terms of feedback? I don't like it when people say, I'm sorry for such a long comment. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry. Like fucking, or just like, don't get into that. That just adds like extra lines. Either I'm going to read the comment or not. Like I can choose to read your comment. Like I probably wouldn't have read this comment other than the fact that I read the other comment and they came together. Like they were like part of it, whatever it was. You don't have to comment about your comment, about the length or about your skill. I mean, you can apologize for the grammar or not, but I can choose to read the comment or not. Like, it's just, I'm not forced to read any of your guys' comments. So, like, apologizing about the length, I'm not going to read long comments. So, by reading a long comment, I'm not going to read all of it. I might read some of it, even if it's positive comment, but I have millions of comments, and I'm not, So just so people understand, like, you don't have to say anything about it. Like, there's no, like, apologies for that. Well, it's like, then you're saying you shouldn't have wrote the comment in the first fucking place. You're saying I made a mistake, but I'm doing the comment anyway. Like, just accept that and I'm not talking just to this person, right? You're writing the comment for yourself. And that's how I look at all these comments. If you're sending me a link to something, it's still somewhat for yourself. Like, even if you're saying, oh, Paul, did you hear about this or that? Sharing something is usually, you want other people to see it, right? Like, there's a thing there, but some of it's for yourself too. But if you're writing something about whether it's negative towards me or positive towards me, it's something that, like, you feel you need to express, right? And whether I read the comment, whether I understand the comment, my reaction to the comment is really not important at all. It's something that you feel you need to express. Even this person said it. I feel like I need to express this. Then just fucking express it. Like, don't worry about the length or the whatever it is, even if it's like 3 pages long. Because my reading it has no, people think me reading it is something important to you when it's not. Because, like, the way I would read it is, if I'm in the beginning scrolling through the comments, I'm going to put a lot more effort into reading a comment than down at the bottom. And if I haven't read comments in a day or two, which seems to be the case now lately, and what difference, who cares whether I read it or not? Like, what is, who am I, right? Like, I'm not the comment validator or, a validator of your, issues or things. Like, you're expressing something you need to express, whatever it is, right? The negative ones, I'm just going to ban you because you're trying to dump shit on me that I'm not willing to accept. And so if it's something where you're saying you're grateful, well, gratitude is something that I value. So if you're saying, Paul, I'm grateful for what you have here, then those comments are valuable because gratefulness is a, part of my, everything. There's a gratefulness meditation. It's what I say at the end of the video. It's what I work and strive for personally. So yeah, being grateful is not only valued, but it's, part of the goal of this channel. This idea of being grateful for whatever it is, right? But for the most part, I don't look at these comments as having anything to do with me. Like, sometimes the positive things that you're expressing are coming, you're saying them to me like I'm the person responsible, but I act as a conduit for the divinity within me, and you're having a positive experience with that. And so it's not, you're not addressing me, you're addressing God that's coming through me. It has nothing to do with me personally. It's like the whole problem with being the master of the Sajmark system. A true master is just a conduit for divinity. And then there's the person, the ego, the human being that has to open up and allow the divinity to flow through them on a higher level and have to commit and give up their spiritual sovereignty. And then, people come to them, call them master or whatever it is, but they can't think of themselves as master. As soon as you start thinking of yourself as master, you're usurping the position of God, right? So a true spiritual, higher developed soul is only a higher developed soul as long as they realize that it's something that's coming through them and not them themselves. It's not when people are responding to them, it's because they're allowing the divinity to flow through them. And that's the key to, not falling spiritually. But again, I just want to wrap this up. I got, go eat lunch. It's leftover pizza. On Sunday, it's usually leftover pizza that we had Saturday night. And I watched a little football. It's like 1-something here. But anyways, that's irrelevant. And so, in all that, like this person saying I suck, well, that's not, there's still an audience here that wants to see and hear what I have to say. And there would be more people if YouTube was acting differently, but I don't know if that would be better or worse. It would certainly not be either one. It would be better in some ways and worse in some ways, right? Like, just like everything else. But again, I suck socially. I suck in terms of I don't know, say I suck, but like, there's people who are really good at making, they've gone to school and they're young people and know how to use computers much better than I do. And they could make very, much more in terms of production values, and they have money and a budget and these things. So, the production values and, this is just two things this guy said. I don't know what else this person said, right? But the other thing I suck at is being a businessman. I'm not business oriented, and I haven't found ways I could make, I found more ways to monetize my content. But the bottom line is the ideas that I have value to people, to some people. And, even if they didn't, I feel that they're, having gone through what I've gone through over these years and, seeing the evolution of my product that I put out here, that they do have value because of the energy in there. And I've had confirmation of this despite what anybody says, even the grateful comments here. I feel like what I have to say has value because of the test of time. The things I've been right about, the way the world's going, and all the things that I've said. And so, that's all that is here, right? And people either value it or they don't. They rise up to it or they don't. Because most people are coming from a lower evolutionary, at least spiritually, position than what I have, been able to, I don't want to say achieve, I want to say more gifted, because it was, to me, a gift. The Sagemark system. And I put effort into it, so it's not like I didn't do anything. But, I know what I am without Sagemark, and I wasn't somebody worth listening to. Without my connection to the divinity within me, I wouldn't be putting out content because I wouldn't think it would have value, because I was I was a low-functioning person. I was an underachiever in 1993, when I was blessed with the transmission and cleaning process in the Sagemark system. And because of that, I've evolved into something, and part of that, evolution is the content I create here. And it has value because I see it has value. It has value for me. I see the benefits. Like, I've seen how much better I am because of that system and the spiritual process. And when you have a relationship with the divinity within you, especially when you have a system that cultivates and helps enhance that, whatever it is. And so, that's why this channel exists, because I've been doing this now 30 some odd years, 1993, 32, I believe, this at least in August, 32 or 33 and whatever's long period of time. And, there's been changes, and there's still changes ahead of, there's like benefits, good changes, right? And there's growth in things, and there's evolution. So, that's why I make videos, because I feel like it's my duty to pass on this information, and I've become what I consider good at it and better at it, comparatively to other people. I mean, they can't even do this because they don't have these experiences that I've had, right? They haven't had the blessings that I've had. But, there's lots of good content out there. There's lots of people who are good at podcasts, or they're interesting, they're good at interviews. I mean, there's lots of great content on YouTube. But this stuff that I do here is unique to this channel in so many different ways. And those who see it, and the rest of the people, I don't, good, go somewhere else. Like it's not, I mean, I don't care. Like, if you don't like it, go. Like, if you don't see it, you don't feel it, you're not benefiting from it, why the fuck would you watch it, right? I'm not looking for a mercy, view, I'm not looking for charity views, right? Like, the only reason for people to watch this is it has some value to you, and you think what I'm saying is worth listening to. If you don't, then please leave. I mean, just, if you are staying here to hate a whatever, or you're upset because I said something and you're just like fixated in some negative way, like, why are you here? If this person who wrote this comment, if you're still listening, why would you write a comment about how bad I suck, put all that energy in, and come back and listen, to any other videos? Like, you put like a 4-page thing about how bad I suck and categorized it. Like, you should move on. Like, why are you still here? Like, you got to like figure that out. Like, look at yourself and say, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. Why are you that obsessed? I would never write a comment that long. It's a hateful comment. Like, why, just, are you looking to hurt my feelings, to undermine my confidence, or undermine the confidence of my viewers? Like, figure out why you wrote the comment. It's not for me. I don't want it. It's not benefiting me, other than I could use it here. But any number of these comments, these negative comments, if they disappeared altogether, then I couldn't make comment video parts, and that, that would be a little bit sucky, because I kind of like doing that. But other than that, they have no benefit, right? other than me, picking them apart and saying things about it. But you should think about why you're doing it. Like, why would you write negative comments? Not just to me, to anybody. Are you doing it because you have negativity inside you and you just want to make someone else feel like shit? Like, that's like a part of it. Like, some part of it is you have like a lot of negative things inside of you and you want to put that on somebody else. You want someone else to feel like you feel. You want to bring somebody down because you feel like shit. You want other people to feel like shit. Like, all the negative comments on the internet, that's at least part of it. And that's fucked, right? That's like fucked up, And just think about what kind of person you are then. Like, you're just contributing shit to other people. Like, you suck as a person because you're saying these things to bring other people down and to demean them in some way. You want them to feel bad like you feel, or feel worse or whatever. Like, you want other people to, you're like putting a whammy on them. You're like, I can feel the energy behind comments, whether they're directed towards me or somebody else. You can feel, the energy that the person wrote the comment with, whether it's like there's anger or hatred, just the energy. It's like it's like a weapon, right? They're trying to say something. They want you to feel bad. Anytime you go and you shit on somebody on the internet, like, I mock people here, but I don't do it to them. I don't want them to see it because I'm not doing it for their benefit. They're not my audience, right? If Don Lemon came and watched Don Lemon, his dopey, followers, well, that's on them because they're, like I said, if I choose to read a comment, I choose to read a comment. If I choose to watch a video, I choose to watch a video. I can turn it off. If I don't like it, I can turn it off. When people say you wasted 45 minutes of my time, at what point did you think this video was going to fucking deliver something to you that you had to wait 45 minutes to realize it wasn't, right? Like, like, why is that my fault that you couldn't figure out this video or my channel or the way I was talking wasn't going in a direction that, you wanted it to go, right? Like, I'm not promising some surprise ending. I'm not M. Night Shyamalan in you, right? Like, it's pretty much upfront what I think about things and where things are going. There's patterns in my video you should easily be able to see. Like, how many videos of mine do you have to watch to realize this is it, right? There's no, like, I mean, once in a while I come up with some, like, brilliant spiritual thing that I'm channeling, kind of, conduiting kind of thing. So there's these different levels to the channel, but it's still, this is all there is. There's no, there's no, like, the Easter eggs or some shit in here. So anyways, let me wrap this up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramount, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.